We rely on multimedia to teach and to learn, even if we're not educators or students. Therefore, we should all be familiar with the science of multimedia instruction. Our brain does not interpret a multimedia presentation of words, pictures, and auditory information in a mutually exclusive fashion. These three elements are selected and organized dynamically to produce a logical mental construct. Multimedia learning theory involves understanding how our brains process visual images, audio, as well as text. There's a proper way to use multimedia to ensure learning unfolds, and many ways in which we can create cognitive overload and distractions that subtract from how well our audience or students learn. Meyer's cognitive theory of multimedia learning is widely respected and a valuable resource for anyone teaching students remotely or relying on multimedia in any way. It relies on three core assumptions of multimedia learning. Dual channel. Humans have two separate channels to process visual and auditory information. The implication here is that we must use both channels to foster learning. Cognitive load. We have a limited amount of information we can process at once. The implication here is that we must manage how much information we load while facilitating the encoding of information into long-term memory for our audience. Active learning. We attend to relevant information and organize it into a mental representation so we can integrate it into our existing knowledge. The implication here is that new knowledge builds upon prior knowledge. The more foreign the new information is to our brain, the harder it is for us to understand it. We engage in three types of cognitive processes while learning, and each one of these is supported by the principles that enhance how effective our online instruction is. Extraneous. This aims to reduce the excess that distracts and subtracts from learning. In other words, less is often more. There are four principles connected to the extraneous. We learn better from words and pictures than words alone. The visual channel is more memorable than our auditory channel. We learn better when extra information is omitted. We should only include essential pictures and sounds to make our point. We learn better from graphs and narration than animation plus on-screen text. The implication here is that text can be used sparingly, but it should never compete with your words. We learn better from graphics and narration than graphics, narration, and on-screen text. The implication here is that we need to minimize text, only include keywords. We can use text, but we have to adhere to two guiding rules. Words should be placed near the graph or image they support. Text and images need to be integrated so that the text that supports the image appears simultaneously rather than sequentially. There's a proper way to use text to enhance learning, and an improper way that can make instruction feel less effective. It's important to remember that just like we can't deliver a speech while reading different text, our audience can't read text while hearing our words. Going back to our structure, for the three cognitive processes that support multimedia learning, we've covered the extraneous. The second cognitive process is the essential. The essential refers to managing the content that is critical to our instruction. Here's how we achieve this. First, people learn better with added cues to highlight essential material. The implication here is that if we use arrows, circles, or highlighting, we can emphasize our point. Second is the presentations should be short and focused on user-paced or self-led segments. The implication here is that micro-lessons and micro-teaching improve learning. Third, people learn better from multimedia when jargon is taught in advance of the instruction. The implication here is that we should always teach new terms prior to teaching content. The third cognitive process that supports multimedia learning is increased generative cognitive processing, which is quite a bit of jargon. This helps learners organize and make sense of the material being taught. We learn by integrating, therefore, this helps students connect to the content being taught. There are two recommendations that allow for this to occur effectively. First, people learn better from a conversational voice that is informal. I've tried to maintain a conversational tone throughout this presentation. Hopefully, I'm not violating a learning principle here. Second, people don't learn better when an image of the speaker is floating on the screen. It becomes an unnecessary distraction. Embedded in this academic framework are basic principles that should be followed by educators when teaching online or using multimedia in person. These principles are science-based and proven to be effective. Meyer's cognitive theory of multimedia learning contains lots of technical language. to describe very useful advice for teaching effectively. In this video, we intentionally omitted over 10 technical terms to allow you to focus on key advice to follow and not be distracted by those technical terms. COGx programs provide educators with an understanding of the concept as well as an explanation of how these learning principles improve teaching and learning. Therefore, we complement these with COGx application guides that help educators serve as a reference when planning online instruction or multimedia presentations for their students. We hope you find this video useful.